Hey everybody, we are going to bring Rory in here just a few minutes before we get started. Thanks for joining and sharing and spreading the word.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
How are
All
you?
right, you made it. Hey, doing
I
good.
did. I did. Thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. Welcome to Happy Music, everybody. Um, so we are joined today by singer-songwriter Rory DeLasno, and I am Richard Guerra. It's good to be back. It's been a little while since I've been on Happy Music, speaking with musicians about mental health and their music. But I did get a chance to touch base and meet Rory beforehand, and super fired up, really excited. What beautiful life and beautiful music, and maybe for starters, how are you doing? It has been one crazy year, much like last year for everybody, difficult and challenging. And how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm hanging in. I'm hanging in. It definitely has been, but we're still here. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's good. I recently got to make a move to Brooklyn and New York City, my favorite place, and can't complain. Feeling good, um, feeling healthy as well, and that tends to be a priority these days.
Yeah, definitely true. Everything flows more easily once you are in a good place physically and mentally.
Yeah, it might be good to just kind of let folks know that are watching. Maybe they haven't heard of you before. Maybe they just happen to tune in. Maybe give a little introduction to yourself and what it is you
Sure,
do.
absolutely. So, yeah, my name is Rory DeLasno. I'm a singer-songwriter from New Jersey, right outside of New York City. And I've been playing since I was a little kid, about first grade, kindergarten. Um, and yeah, one of the reasons why all of this is so important to me is that my life journey is sort of been intertwined with music, and it's been a way for me to process everything I've gone through and everything that I have encountered in the world. So it's that's why music and mental health are two of my big passions.
Thank you for that intro and just for being here. It takes a little courage to come and speak and on IG Live just generally, but to kind of get real about your past and your journey with mental health as we do here at Happy Music. And when we spoke a few days ago and got to know each other, you told me a little bit about your life and specifically, the tough, uh, challenging difficulty of losing both of your parents in your life. And if you feel comfortable speaking about that, can you tell us the story and how, and then maybe after that, like how music played a part and how you process that?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, first off, I'll just say, both of my parents played a huge role in me uh, gravitating toward music. So, while it's obviously, really tragic to lose either parent at any age, um, music has been a way for me to sort of pay tribute to them and remember, the effect that they had on me. So, basically, the way things went down in my life was when I was 14, my mother passed away of a sudden heart attack. And she was like fine that morning. And then I went to school, and before the end of the school day, my guidance counselor had to pull me out of class and bring me to the hospital. So super sudden. By the time I got there, she was already gone. So obviously it was very difficult, but not to immediately try to turn it into a look on the bright side, consolation type thing. Um, every moment I've had since that has been, seen through that lens of somebody who's, experienced a sudden great loss. And I feel like it's enabled me to understand people better and hopefully
Sure.
comfort, yeah, hopefully, comfort people who have been through similar stuff, which is unfortunately, more people than a lot of people would think. And then my father recently passed away this past year in May, and he was a little older, and he had a lot of health issues, but it was sort of the opposite in that it was a very prolonged, drawn out experience. But having both of those experiences sort of, like I said, enabled me to have a little bit of perspective and understand, hopefully, other people's struggles a little bit better.
Right. Yeah. I myself have experienced that a little. And first of all, like,
So,
thank you for speaking on that and
my
being
pleasure.
vulnerable. And I've had certain members of my family that I've lost and experienced people close to me doing the same. And there is this opportunity to kind of find some purpose in what we're going to do going forward, and kind of existentially, and recognizing that every day and throughout our life we're going to encounter people maybe close to us, maybe people we don't know, who are going to be going through that, or maybe that just happened to them, that loss of someone close. And yes, so to
Yeah.
be able to kind of not only have it happen to us, but to move through that in a way where maybe we're going to go and make a difference for someone else going forward. It can be a beautiful, not consolation, but like a beautiful um, effect, I suppose.
Yeah,
And
I
and
definitely
so
agree.
and so did maybe in both of those experiences, do you recall, like, was that something, were you creating music at that point when you lost your mother? And clearly you were creating music when you lost your father. So did did music, I guess maybe I have two parts, and like did music that you like, making music, play a part in how you process that and what happened afterwards? And maybe like, was there music that you were listening to or experiencing that also made a difference?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely to both. I wrote a song in honor of my mother very, very soon after, just trying to kind of, I don't know, encapsulate what I was feeling, which is, oftentimes grieving is hard to. So I mean, it's obviously hard to go through, but it's hard to totally pinpoint what you're feeling and what stage of grief you're in. They're not linear. I
Mm.
guess, a lot of people are familiar with the stages of grief, and it's like one of those things where you could be angry one day and then, denial the next, and then, you go back and forth. And music is the kind of thing where it's such a gut thing where you could just sort of key into what you're feeling and maybe not even entirely understand it yourself. So I guess all this to say, yes, I started playing music more once she had passed. Unfortunately, it did derail my like career progress, so to speak, a little bit, which is also something I'm passionate about being aware of and advocating against, like sorry, I have like so many things to say about this that
It's
I'm
okay.
sort of getting like off on a little bit of a tangent. But yes, music was an integral role, played an integral role for my processing of it, both listening to and making. Um, I was just sort of thinking about how I stopped, going out and doing things because I was in that grieving, and that was just another thing where it was like I feel like that's got to be common, and I just want to like talk to the people who are like going during the thick of that experience and be like, hey, listen, like, don't lose sight of like where you're going, and it's okay to take a breather, but there's like no right way to do any of this stuff. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Sure. And but you said you lost your father last year.
Yeah. Or this past year, yeah.
And you have a new EP, songs from an empty room, correct? And
Yes.
did that release particularly, and like the music that maybe you put out this year, is that a place that you were able to bring some of that emotion as well?
100%. The most recent song from that EP, my most recent single, Power of My Love, was actually, and I think I mentioned this in our conversation prior, was written in honor of a friend of mine who had a family member, close family member, pass away in a terrorist attack, actually. And then just as I was about to release it, my dad passed. And it's really hard to be actively singing and promoting and talking about a song about losing someone you love and not think about your own personal loss. So she told me, her name is Kristen Wilkins, and her cousin was Darren Drake, or is Darren Drake. Um, she basically said, like, it's okay, like this song can be about your dad, like you're going through it right now. And I said, no, 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 I want this song to be about loss in general and keeping people's memories alive, because the circumstances of her losing her cousin and me losing my father are obviously completely different. But that's a universal piece where you're grieving someone and trying to cling to the memories you have with them and keep their legacy alive. Um, so yeah, that song came to represent something deeply deeply personal to me, and also sort of touched on that idea that we're all in this together, and yeah, I mean it's part of the human experience.
Have you, and in being a musician and putting your music out there, sharing it with fans and listeners and folks, have you experienced any feedback, or like have any listeners and friends of yours or fans, people who've been touched by our music, reached out and let you know that that's something that's touched them, or that sparked some sort of memory or some emotion for them, your music?
Yeah, that's happened a fair amount, and it's honestly like the most incredible thing. I feel like that's probably my primary motivation in all of this, that feeling of connecting with another human being, and then, hopefully providing some comfort. Um, it's just a great honor. So I'm really grateful I can say that has happened a few times, for people who come up to me and they felt compelled to tell their story, or, compelled to say like, oh, that feeling, that you described in that song, like I felt that and I couldn't quite figure out the way to explain it, or I wasn't really fully aware of it until you said it. Because like there are some lyrics in my songs. Um, there are a lot of lyrics I write that frankly I think are pretty dumb, but there are some lyrics where I like feel like I write something just sort of like without really thinking about it, just whatever comes to my mind, and then I think about it after, and I'm like, that actually did kind of describe this feeling that's sort of elusive, because there are so many elusive feelings when it comes to grieving and depression. So yeah, all this to say, I think it's something that can kind of transcend music in general, and kind of transcend those concrete, easy to articulate feelings. Oh, I'm pissed off because someone cut me off in their car, or I'm sad because, I
Mm.
cut my finger or something.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, and just I mean, it makes me think of like a classical piece or something. There's a lot of music that doesn't involve like strict like thoughts or words or anything like
Yeah,
that, but man, they sure do bring out emotion and spur memory, and just and in some ways, I'm sure there's almost like a music science behind that, as to like maybe there's certain frequencies or certain chord progressions or something like that that like just hits you right. Dissonance, especially, that always comes to mind for me. It's like, how do you not
yeah,
feel dark or sad or something when the music is kind of in that place? Um,
yeah,
well,
absolutely.
you mentioned like grieving, and obviously we're talking about loss, and through loss and grief and these moments, these things, who did you turn to, and who do you turn to in these moments, and whether that's someone that or anything else, I guess.
Yeah, it's mostly McDonald's and the Big Mac. That's good. Yeah. Well, listen,
I think we're
stress
all been
eating
there.
and yeah, eating your feelings is definitely a real thing, and I definitely, unfortunately, know a little bit about that as well. But yes, I mean, I would say even more than like a particular person. It's just been like the overall community. And I mean, it sounds corny and it sounds like convenient to bring it back to music, but predominantly the music community around me that's helped me feel inspired and supported, both like in actual, words of support, like, hey, brother, I'm here for you. And then just like going to shows and listening to songs and
Right.
making songs with, it's just like that, just that vibe is just like, it's just, it gets you through all the tough times and not sort of loosely related, but a little tangential because it's hard for me to stay on topic here. This is something I'm so excited about. But one of the biggest reasons that I did not pursue music aggressively after my mom died is because I was nervous about the steps that were required to get to the end goal, and I didn't anticipate this community. And the community is the key thing, both from a music career, a music business standpoint, side of things, and from a mental health standpoint. Like feeling like you've got people who have your back is, professionally advantageous and really important for your mental health as well. And that was a game changer in both of those circumstances for me, and something I strive to, provide other people with as well, and remind them that that's a thing. So just got to dive in, and people will show up. And, music is a great uniting factor.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that was beautiful. And a few things came to mind. I mean, first you were kind of mentioning going to a show when something, is going down. And I do remember, maybe I'll, especially during the lockdown and whatnot, it was just like so long since any of us actually got to stand in a concert hall or listen to music and feel it. I mean, especially with other people. And so it was really kind of I think it probably had an emotional effect on so many of us coming back to it, and standing there and feeling that for the first time. But, even after like, losing someone or, something really disappointing happening, this period of maybe depression that's happening, there can be such a release that can occur at a show, like in front of music, or, obviously on your headphones as well, no doubt. But it's a special thing to be able to kind of feel it affect us like that. And yeah, so like what other than maybe, so far we've kind of discussed what you went through there and loss and grief as emotions that are represented in your music and how you deal with those. But what other emotions do you experience the most? And I
Yeah,
suppose, and maybe how does that kind of affect you as a musician?
sure. Well, I guess there's sort of an old stereotype about how creatives are especially sensitive and prone to these sort of, I don't know, what like a layperson would say is probably like a gloomy spell or something. I feel like people always try to characterize it as that. People who don't make music are like, all you musicians are so gloomy and, but I do think there's some truth to that to some extent. I mean, anybody who's really trying to like actively tune into these like very subtle, nuanced experiences or parts of the human experience is going to probably catch a little bit of negativity from time to time. So yeah, I'm a pretty gloomy guy
Hmm.
from the get-go, regardless of circumstance. So I guess that's one of the things that I do notice that music helps with, and that music helps illuminate the fact that a lot of us are in that boat. There's a lot of people who listen to Phoebe Bridgers, for example, and that music is sad. And it's like, sometimes you need a happy song to pull you out of a rut, but sometimes you need a sad song to just feel it and sit with it and just, wait it out, commiserate for a little bit. So definitely sadness is the emotion I would say that comes out of nowhere sometimes.
I mean, I guess I've always loved songwriters, and so I guess a thought came to mind as to how you, go about getting some new songs written or making some new music. Like, is that like I'm gonna sit down and with my pen and my guitar and start just, figuring out like, I want this kind of song or that kind of song, or is it always kind of like a spur of the moment thing, or maybe more of the process? Is that something you
Well,
do? give us an insight into?
All my new songs are about McDonald's new Big Mac. So no, just
I
kidding.
knew it. I
The one
knew
thing
it.
I'm
Yeah.
passionate about. No, yeah, it does
Shout
sort
out.
of shout out, right? This is not sponsored by McDonald's, by
Da,
the
da, 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 da.
way. Oh my goodness.
Should sample that.
Yes, I should. I should. Um, no, yeah, it sort of depends. So again, part of my journey, and it feels kind of tangential, but it's also related to mental health and the way things panned out in my life. Part of my journey is that I took this huge hiatus from playing shows for like the majority of my 20s because I was too scared or too preoccupied or whatever. As a
Yeah.
result of that, I took this, or I had this long stretch where I was like accumulating material and not playing it out. So I
Whoa.
would say that, yeah, just as an aside, like this in my particular situation, I don't like try to write as much as I probably should. But when I do write, I guess I have that luxury of just sort of like letting it flow whenever it does.
Cool.
And I don't know how typical that is, but that's like the kind of like unsexy answer that I would give. For me, it's sort of just, yeah, it happens when it happens, and I don't really try to force it.
Yeah, no, no, no. And I mean, if anything, that's a kind of a fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. It's kind of a fascinating element of your artistry that I like. Maybe your fans or someone new definitely wouldn't have known that you had that kind of that emotion and that sounds like fear and anxiety around performance at some point in your life as a performer and an artist, and
Yeah,
you really ended up putting that away and coming back, which is a beautiful thing. But also, not only did you stay away from the performance side, but you were able to continue to create, and then you had kind of some content to work from as you came back to it. How recently did you kind of break the ice and get back to performing and feeling comfortable again?
it was October 10th, 2018. That was my first show back, as I say, and honestly, kind of like my first show because
I figured,
all the
yeah.
previous ones were like when I was a little kid and I was playing Englewood Library in my hometown. I played it at 12 years old, and I played for an hour, and people came and watched. But there were no ticket sales and stuff like that, and
Sure.
so I sort of, yeah. I mean, I remember just a few years prior, like literally physically shaking at an open mic nearby where it was like 10 people in the room, and I was like petrified, even though I'd been playing since I was 6. So,
Mm.
again, the takeaway for me is just like, just please, everybody, just, dive into the thing that scares you, as like silly or as, overly simplistic as it may be to say, because like the minute I did, it was like everything just sort of came together. And obviously, I'm not like, Taylor Swift right now or something, but like, I would say that there are definitely elements of my experience that I would categorize as success, at least from like a personal fulfillment standpoint. So yeah, I mean, just like anxiety, I guess, is another component of what you're of the answer to the question you were asking before about like things you might feel. And yeah, those things don't last forever. Like now it's kind of hard to freak me out on stage. A lot of things sometimes go wrong on stage, and I'm just like, guess I got to tune my guitar better next time. I don't know. You expect the unexpected. But yeah, I mean,
It's
what were you gonna say?
oh, it's funny how this, the like kind of, I think the stage fright, in particular, that kind of anxiety, it tends to, and I feel like it must be for all humans. It starts to manifest in like what level of shaking is your body going to do? Is it
Right.
uncontrollable where your page is falling out of your hands, or is it so much that like you feel it and you experience it, so then like that affects what's flowing out, or is it you're calm and cool as a cucumber? It's funny, like I also did some coffee shop performing when I was in junior high school, and I think back to that, and it wasn't really, I didn't feel all that nervous about it. I was pretty relaxed. But then,
Yeah.
yeah, when I got back years later to giving that kind of thing a shot, public speaking or singing in front of, I was a shaky guy. I was very shaky,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
but I
it's
didn't
so
give up.
frustrating feeling that way.
Like and somehow it sounds like you obviously didn't give up either, and you got back in there, and it sounds like it came back, and it wasn't all that hard. It was pretty easy.
Yeah.
I've had to kind of like personally, I've had to kind of just keep hammering away with it over year, and my like shake level has gone down. Now it's like very minimal.
Yeah.
So hooray. Pro-
Yes. No, definitely something to celebrate because that's like such a helpless feeling when you're there and you're like shaking and you're like looking at your hand and you're like, stop it, like what's going on? But at the end of the day, like I like I'm personally grateful for those moments because like I said, like just like the loss, like those are the moments that enable me to see somebody else in that position and be like, hey, you don't have to listen to me, but like just so you know, like I get that and like it does get better, like whether it's like chipping at it repeatedly or whether it's just like things just fall into place. Like there's little elements of both that probably happen for a lot of people. Like nothing is just totally black and white.
And thank you. And in terms of like, these emotions that are happening for you, like what would you say is like you mentioned Big Macs, but maybe we could think of another, like could you throw out like an example of an unhealthy thing you do to manage your emotions, but also like what is something you feel good about that is a healthy choice to make?
As I'm picking at my fingernails as we speak. So there's one unhealthy
Okay.
one. Yeah, no, I think about this a lot, and it's like it just seems so like overly simplistic, but like I find for me what really works is like really taking a step back and looking at like the scariest moments for me and then just seeing like how like I'm still here. So like obviously like things can seem like the end of the world and then like if you like look at
Hmm.
where you've come from and where you are now, whether it's like Madison Square Garden or it's like playing a cover gig at TGI Fridays, you could still kind of like look back and say, all right, well, I didn't die when I thought like everything was falling apart. And honestly, I mean, as overly simplistic as that sounds, anybody who has the ability to think that is like alive. So, like you can clearly make it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's easier easy to do the imposter syndrome thing. Like, I feel like I always hear about like people who are like A-list celebrities who sit there thinking like they're not worthy of some particular role or something like that. I mean, the important thing is to remember that like so many folks struggle with the same kinds of things and tear themselves down and are their own harshest critics. But I think we're all strengthened. We all can be strengthened by realizing that like that is a universal thing. It's so easy to feel like I'm the only one.
I think that that is a healthy thing to do to manage your emotions that you mentioned, and I like to do it as well, and I encourage people to not shy away from it, to be able to kind of have this perspective on your past and what you have been through and where you've come from, and kind of relate that to the moment and use that context to help you kind of like maybe cool that down or like not blow that up and not let it kind of get out of hand. Um,
Yeah.
and that is not, it's, you're right, it's simple, but it's also really difficult.
Yeah.
That
Hard to put into practice, but
Yeah, but it's really worth it. Totally. It helps kind of like, because usually those moments where it's like something horrible happened or something that's normally going to give us a lot of anxiety or make us super sad, whatever it is in the moment, that experience we're having, it can be so like rocky. It just feels like the waves are just like so violent. They're whipping, and is it ever going to stop? But it always, more for the most part, it usually does. And if you think back
yeah.
to those moments where it's happened in the past, it did then. And it will again if you can kind of have that faith, I guess.
Yeah.
And you, when we spoke earlier, you mentioned to me that you also work in the mental health field, and it'd be cool to kind of hear about how you got to that and what it is you do, and then also just how does that affect you, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's been a real lifesaver for me. So, I got a psychology degree from the University of Michigan, sort of as like as a backup. I've always been, interested in learning and stuff like that, and passionate about thinking about things a little bit more beyond what meets the eye. But, in my heart, I wanted to be a crazy rock star, I don't know. So I was like, oh, but I got to get this degree and get good grades and get a real job. Music's not a real job, all that kind of stuff that the world tells you. So it started out as something that I felt like I had to do, and then I ended up working in a mental health agency that I actually still work for. Um, I've been there since college, so 10 years on and off in various
Wow.
capacities. I work with people predominantly with psychotic disorders, mood disorders, and personality disorders. Um, and it's affected me in such a positive way. I mean, I really love the people I work with. Both employees as well, but referring predominantly to the folks who I'm serving, and it's really intertwined with music. There was a point where there was some discussion of should I just do music and not, even have another job, and I did, and it was, it's good. I mean, obviously, it wasn't wealthy, but I was making it. But I realized I kind of missed, working with these folks. And I think part of the reason is that no matter what language you speak or what your orientation is, where you're at in your head, what you're struggling with, music is a great unifier. So I find folks that are profoundly psychotic, meaning like, literally out of touch with reality. And we still like the same songs by the Allman Brothers. I mean,
Ah,
there's
sure.
no
Wow, that's
barrier there
beautiful.
whatsoever. It's so cool. And I mean, some of these folks that I work with, again, all these anecdotes and tangents. So sorry, I'm so excited about this topic. I feel like I can't stay on task, but
Don't worry.
it is loosely related. But like I think to this one particular guy who is, legitimately psychotic. The definition of psychotic is, out of touch with reality, unable to decipher the difference between reality and what's not actually occurring. And, this guy is struggling with that, but he plays piano and guitar and writes so prolifically. It's inspiring to see and connect with somebody over that, despite whatever potential obstacles or barriers there could be. It all comes down when it comes to simple song. So why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? It's gift that keeps giving.
That's awesome. Have you ever played music for anyone that you've really
Yeah,
cool?
we've
I
even
wasn't
played
sure.
music together. It's been really cool. It's there's so much overlap that
That's
it's like
awesome.
I don't know. I like it. Just brings me a lot of joy.
Yeah, I think it brings a lot. I think just even probably people watching this, and I mean, I've watched like films, and there's been some things in pop culture that show these situations where people that are mentally ill are experiencing music, and then the beautiful effect that that has, and it's one of those like really bright lights in this world when everything seems so dark. That like, oh man, that's what a great story. That's amazing to hear. It's like just when you think somebody's just as lost and dark, there's something there to pull them back. And I don't know, it almost makes me think that like this should just be their life, if they or if they've lost touch with reality, and that could be the kind of thing that is not so beautiful and colorful, just play music for them 24/7. Like put music
Yeah.
in their head and in their life, and just why not? I just thought I think that's what I'd want to have happen to me. I'm on the record. Just I mean, in some ways, I'm well and whatnot, thankfully. But in some ways, like if I'm not like having a conversation with the person, like we're not talking on the phone, or I'm not like talking to someone directly, and even if I am with someone in a room, I've got my headphones on, I've got music on, like literally all the time. It's kind of a tick, so
Yeah.
and it helps. It definitely feels good.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's therapeutic for everybody involved. Therapeutic for people making the music, people listening to music. We all experience it differently, but we all end up, bound together by that common experience. So I love it.
We love that too, man. Thank you. And I think, I just love having the opportunity to speak to someone like yourself about these things, and because it's a passion of mine, and clearly yours as well, and so many musicians, really every musician we've had on Happy Live, um, Happy Music Live has some sort of correlation to mental health, like outside of what they're doing as musicians, like, and it's wild how there is an overlap there. But
Yeah.
I appreciate your honesty and openness and courage. And before we kind of jump off, or I think I'm going to have Kristen on in a second. But is there anything else that you like to share with your fans or anybody that's been listening and watching at all?
No, I just want to say, thank you for having me and thanks for the work that you guys do because, I think my experience with mental health is threefold. So, I mean, there's the struggles I've had myself in terms of, struggling with, like I said, grieving and depression. And then there's the professional aspect of it with my job. But another way that I really align with your guys' vision is I notice how hard it is to get access to resources. And oftentimes, people are not feeling capable to reach out to resources until it's like they're so deep in a hole that what already was difficult now feels like an insurmountable obstacle. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I've been on both sides of that. I've been on the provider side of it where I'm trying to get my clients help, and then I've been in need of help and been like, man, this is like harder than it should be. So all that to say, I'm sure Kristen will talk a little bit about, more at length about what you guys do, but I really admire you guys' mission and, what you're bringing to the table because it's really important.
Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure, and I think we're even going to find some ways to get you involved with Happy the Movement. And Kristen, I'm sure she's listening, and if you're ready to join us, I think it's a perfect time to let folks know more about Happy the Movement and the work that we're doing and that our support givers are doing. Oh, there she is. Oh, the fire! It is that time of year.
Look what I did for
Yes,
I made it magic.
Hey.
I love it.
Oh wow, yeah. This is my Christmas tree.
Yeah, we are in the wrong place. I think Kristen's got the right vibe here for
Well,
sure.
I would bring it for all of us. It is that time of year, and I'm actually traveling. I'm in New York City, and I'm definitely getting into the spirit. So I thought I would share with all of us. But more importantly, thank you both for sharing your heart and your story, and you're digging in around so many incredible things. I don't even know where to start, but I almost want to start at the Big Mac because really, I was really feeling that. I think that that is an example of all the things that we all do to dig into the things to make us feel better when we don't know how to make ourselves feel better. And one of the incredible things about Happy as a movement, including Happy Music, is a commitment to making sure that people have places to dig in and share their story and to vent and to get that stuff off their chest. So hopefully we are able to make better choices because as delicious as it is, right? We all know that we all dig into all sorts of stuff. It's not just food, it's sex, it's money, it's drugs, it's a lot of things that we all do to escape. I think it was one of the primary missions of Happy to really address that epidemic, right, of not getting the support that we need. So we reach out for the things that fill us up in the ways that quite frankly often feel pretty empty at the end of the day, making us more lonely and isolated. And so having these conversations is sort of the actual mission, is to bring to life the real stuff that we all go through, that sometimes it is hard and sometimes there is loss. But I think one of the most beautiful things that you shared was the community that came from dipping into your music. I think that
Yeah.
is a community resource. It's a message that we can't and we shouldn't do it alone. And if you don't have somebody, we have this amazing resource you can reach out to and talk to a incredibly compassionate human 24/7 on demand. But it's really about shifting the culture of support and making sure that we all belong to supportive communities wherever we can find it. And hopefully it's where we live and where we interact with our peers and our family members, and we build that community out again, because I don't know, we used to have it. I think we've lost it a little as a culture. And really bringing that home and making sure that none of us feel alone is really the mission of both Happy the Movement and Happy Music. So I'm just so grateful for all that you guys were able to share tonight. It was
And
really
it
beautiful.
and like you were just saying, if that's not what you have, if you don't have that support network at home or around you, and you're just feeling like at a loss, this is a beautiful service, and and the happy service is there to and just to provide and to listen and to be a space to speak. And I'm kind of on a personal level, like I have so many, I'm lucky, blessed to have so many people ready to just chat with me. I even yesterday I was feeling something that I just I could tell it was going to make me kind of get in my head and get negative and sad. And I just picked up the phone and had probably 5 different phone calls about it. That's kind of how I do now. You know, my friends just have to get
Yeah.
used to it, you know,
That's
because
amazing.
it works. So I'm like, oh man, I feel so much better after this. I'm ready to keep going.
And that's
Yeah.
how it should be. And, you know, some of us have friends and family, but sometimes our friends and family have, you know, all, you know, they want to help. So they might give advice that we don't want. They might not give us the space to really tell our whole story. One of the things I love about reaching out to a stranger is that I get to tell all of the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? We sometimes pick and choose what we tell to which person in our lives. Um, really do we get witnessed for all that we are, right? The good and the bad, the dark and the light. And at Happy, you actually can do that. You can dip in there and it be safe and it feel good to tell your actual story, your real story.
So where can everybody uh, get happy in their life right now?
Well, they can get it online via the app. They can download Happy the app in the App Store. And you guys can reach out to us here on Instagram if you need help, if you need support of any kind. We're here right now, right this moment, 24/7 on demand. So let us know what you need. And if you need us to reach out to you because you don't feel ready to reach out yourself, just, you know, let us know and we'll be the ones to do the work for you.
Yay.
Yay. Thank you so much, Rory, for your music. And I hope everyone goes and follows Rory and checks out how he's told his story through his music. And I can't wait to have more conversations soon.
Same. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, Rory.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thanks,
You
everybody.
too.
Happy
Happy holidays.
holidays. Be safe, be well.